Okay, I see we are at the 2 o'clock hour here on the East Coast. So I am going to kick things off. My name is Paul Sanstead. I am the Director of Technology and Sustainability here at the Transport Project, and I'm really excited to bring together a really um, a really knowledgeable and experienced group of industry representatives who helped to build a a very valuable and important resource that promotes safety in or during a CNG truck incident. And so there's lots of great information in this new resource that TTP recently published, but it's really meant to be a quick reference for the most important and critical steps to take in a incident scenario. So with that, here is our agenda for today. I'll start with some opening remarks and introductions, and then we'll get into a little bit on who we are here at TTP, what our role is in the transportation sector, and why we developed these CNG emergency response quick reference cards. And then, of course, we'll get into the meat of the webinar today, which is a review of the quick reference cards themselves. And on the right side of the screen, you'll see the the topics that we're really going to be spending a lot of time on today. And those are primarily emergency response procedures and the most critical steps to take in a vehicle crash, a leak, maybe a fuel system leak, thermal event, or a fire scenario. And this is where we'll be spending the majority of our time today. A few opening remarks and housekeeping items. For those of you that are TTP members, a link to this webinar, a recording of this webinar will be provided in the member portal. And of course, that is a resource that we provide to TTP members. For those of you who are not members, unfortunately, there will be no recall information available to you, but we might be able to reach out to you, or feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or would like for us to follow up on anything that we talk about here today. As far as questions go, feel free to post those in the chat at any time. You can also raise your hand at any time, and we may have to cut that off at a certain point if there's just too many hands being raised in the middle of a presentation, because I really want to allow enough time for all of our presenters to have enough time to provide some very valuable information to you all today. And also, to kick things off, we are joined by Mike Zimmerman, who is the General Manager of Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies, and he is the Vice Chairman of TTP's Board of Directors. And so we asked Mike to uh, give us a brief introduction of who we are here at TTP and what we do. Mike, if you could help us out with that.
Thanks, Paul. And I appreciate everybody attending today. As Paul mentioned, I'm the Vice Chair of the Transport Project and the General Manager of Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies. I've been with CCFT for the company for 23 years and directly involved in the CNG business for nearly 15. Why are we involved in Transport Project? I'm not going to read all this to you. One of the biggest benefits to membership in the Transport Project is exposure to the lawmakers and having a voice in DC where a lot of these decisions are made. Another benefit, which I consider one of the greatest benefits, is education. And Paul and the team here have done a phenomenal job in taking the biggest and best industry viewpoints and distilling them down into really manageable, easy to understand information that benefits not only our member companies and fleets, but also first responders. So I think this is extremely valuable content. If you guys are joining this today, that means that you take safety seriously. And, you know, those of you who are familiar with CNG, RNG, or not at all, I think that the important thing to realize is CNG is just as safe as any other fuel type. But it really does um, uh, affect safety is affected by how you treat the fuel and having respect for the fact that it's a gaseous fuel. So it's different than a conventional fuel type. So this is a really beneficial session because it's going to explain a lot of those things. As I mentioned, we've got a panel put together of some of the best and brightest in the industry. And I would just encourage everybody pay attention, but also write down questions and ask questions because there may be something that you don't know that you ask and will benefit someone else. So um, thanks for joining. And with that, go ahead, Paul.
Thank you very much, Mike. Mike helps us out a lot as our vice chair of the board of directors. So, Mike, we appreciate all you do for us, and also we appreciate all the support we get from Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, so moving right along, again, just continuing on with some introductory remarks. This is a real brief introduction to TTP's Technology and Development Committee, where we focus primarily on safety, best practices, codes, and standards. Here is a quick look at the topics we focus on, and primarily you'll see certain topics related to safety, incident investigations, codes and standards, research and development, sustainability perspectives. We like to think that we are fully inclusive of all technology standards and research topic areas within the NGV industry. And as we talk more about these CNG quick reference cards, the genesis of this new resource that TTP just recently published, it occurred here within the Technology and Development Committee, and specifically within the Incident Investigation and Root Cause Analysis Working Group. So we identified a gap that existed within the industry. We saw an opportunity to provide information that would be helpful and is also critical for drivers and first responders to refer to in case an incident occurs. So that just gives you this resource is really just an example of the resources that we develop on a regular basis within the committee. But then again, like I mentioned, we focus on safety, sustainability, and industry advancement as well. Some of the topics you'll see listed on this screen are training, certification, inspections, incident investigations, facility modifications, just to name a few on the safety side. As far as sustainability topics go, we focus on well-to-wheel analysis of fuels, on particularly natural gas, RNG, CNG, and we're starting to dabble more and more into the hydrogen world. But really looking at the full life cycle carbon intensity of fuels is extremely important whenever determining the best fuel for a vehicle application. And looking at that from a well-to-wheel perspective is critical, and not just a tank to wheel or just the tailpipe. Got to look at that whole life cycle of the fuel. And then also in the world of industry advancement, we focus on research and development. We submit yearly appropriations requests to the Department of Energy asking for funding to support a lot of that R&D. Then we also focus on expanding refueling infrastructure. And many times that's through virtual pipelines, tube trailers, and bulk transportation of moving the natural gas and hydrogen. All right, so now the reason that we are all here today, and that is to review this new TTP publication, the CNG Emergency Response Quick Reference Cards. We recently published this just last October 28th in honor of National First Responders Day. These quick reference cards identify key safety protocols and best practices for fleet managers, drivers, and first responders to reference in case an incident involving a CNG-powered truck occurs. And before I get into the cards themselves, I want to recognize Hexagon Agility and Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies for their support and their contributions for a lot of the content that went into these cards. And without them, the development of this resource may not have been possible. So here's a look at the first card, and this one is specific to a vehicle crash or a leak response scenario. So in the case of, say, a vehicle collision occurs and there's no thermal event, no fire occurring at the time, these 7 steps identify what a driver should do. And then at the end, you see step 7 is to hand that card to the first responder. So the the 7 steps identified here are the most important from an industry standpoint that we have identified to take immediately following an incident. And we're going to get into all the details, but there's a lot of hazard mitigation that we're proposing here. We want to eliminate ignition sources. We want to um, restrict the flow of fuel if at all possible. And then you'll see step 4 is establishing a safety zone. And we're going to get into a little bit later how a safety zone differs from an evacuation zone. And then step 5 is calling 911. That driver needs to be the one expressing to the 911 operator that the vehicle involved in this incident is powered by CNG, and that information then needs to be communicated to the first responders. Here is the second card specific to a thermal response, in other words, a fire. And again, these are the most critical steps to take in case there is a fire, or it could be just something smoldering, which is why we call it a thermal event. It might not be actual flames, but if there's anything occurring on the truck that might be either smoldering or is actually on fire, these 7 steps we propose for the driver to take. And again, I mentioned the difference between a safety zone and an evacuation area. If there's a fire involved in this scenario, that is step 1. It's the most critical step is just get away from the truck, establish that evacuation zone, and try to keep people away from the truck. Step 2, dial 911, and then we've got information for firefighters. In particular, we're going to get into a lot of these details, but in particular, we don't want firefighters dousing any water onto or around the fuel system, and we're going to get into why exactly that is. And then for more information, there's a QR code for more detailed information for first responders if they have the time to do that on the scene or just for reference in the future. So this is what the cards look like as a whole. The vision we have for these cards is a laminated 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, front and back. These cards would then be inside the vehicle, accessible to the driver at all times. Um, and particularly, it needs to be easily accessible in case an incident occurs. He doesn't need to be searching through the glove compartment, through a folder. It needs to be readily available for him to pull out of a pocket somewhere in the cab and then refer to the most important steps to take in case one of these situations occur. And I also want to mention the vehicle applications that these cards are intended for. We tend to focus on heavy duty trucks here at TTP, and that primarily is the focus for these cards. So when I say heavy duty trucks, I'm talking about transit buses, Class 8 trucks, and trash trucks or refuse trucks. But that's not to say that some of these instructions are not also applicable to other applications as well. It's just that's sort of the scope of these cards, and just want everyone to be sure of the applications that we're referring to whenever we're talking about these instructions. All right, so with that, we're going to get to our panelists now, and I think we've got a really great team of knowledgeable experts that are going to break down all of the important information contained in these cards for you today. We've got representation from Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies, Hexagon Agility, Renew Gas, Transportation, and WM. And our speakers are listed there on the right. Not only do we have some great representation for you today during this webinar, these same guys are the ones that help us to develop this important industry resource. So thanks, guys, for all of your help. And I am going to now introduce our first speaker today, and that is David Kate. He is the Program Management Manager with Hexagon Agility. He joined back in 2009 and currently leads the program management team, overseeing a diverse portfolio of product development projects ranging from vehicle CNG systems to virtual pipeline solutions. In his early years with the company, David played a key role in designing and integrating CNG fuel systems for the refuse industry. David is a lifelong resident of Nashville, Tennessee, excuse me, and he holds a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering from Tennessee Technological University. So, David, I'm going to hand things over to you.
All right. Thanks for the intro, Paul. It's a privilege to join you today as we introduce this safety resource, the emergency card. At Hexagon Agility, we take the safety seriously. As the largest CNG cylinder manufacturer in the United States, and with over 100,000 vehicles on the road with Hexagon Agility CNG systems, we understand that our responsibility goes beyond delivering high quality products. It's about ensuring the safety of everyone who interacts with these vehicles, especially in emergency situations. We're also proud to lead through innovation, continuously developing advanced clean energy solutions to make transportation safer, more sustainable, and more efficient. That's why we actively support initiatives like this guide, which provides clear visual instructions and quick reference during traffic accidents and vehicle fires. By equipping drivers and first responders with the right information, we strengthen safety, coordination, and help protect lives. All right, next slide. All right, so you're the operator of a CNG vehicle that's been in an accident. What do you do? Jump out, run away? Do you open the glove box and pull out the vehicle manual and start thumbing through, trying to find the instructions? Uh, you know, hopefully not. Hopefully you've been prepared, and your training kicks in. You quickly assess the situation and prevent an accident from becoming a tragedy. Uh, as the driver, you have a critical role of managing the scene to reduce risk and support first responders. As a first responder, you have the critical role to understand how to assess the incident when a CNG vehicle is involved. And the emergency card we're presenting today is the valuable resource for both. We can drop to the next slide. All right, Hexagon Agility has a supplementary guide for public safety first responders to compressed natural gas, CNG or LNG fuel system incidents. This guide was originally developed in 2012 in response to increased adoption. It has been continuously improved as gaps are found in new systems being developed and new technology arising, and what we're learning in incidents and evaluating the responses. This guide is accessible using the QR code on the slide, and it's also on the QR code of the emergency card. And thank you, Paul. Back to you.
All right, David, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Chris Culberson. He is the customer care manager with Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies. He has 11 years of experience with Peterbilt Motors in off-highway design engineering, field service. He has 3 years with custom vehicle solutions in engineering and operations, 10 years experience with Momentum Fuel Technologies, which is the former name for Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies, and he working in the engineering, service, and training fields. and he holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Texas A&M University, who's having a great year, by the way, in football. So with that, Chris,
Yes,
I will hand
finally.
things over to you.
Thank you, Paul. So, Cummins Clean Fuel Technologies, we have been in business as a compressed natural gas fuel system designer and manufacturer since 2015. Um, we have several people here that have experience well beyond that. I've been dealing with natural gas, both LNG and CNG, for about 20 years now. I started out with Peterbilt Motors being responsible for all the natural gas trucks that initially went into the ports of California in 2007. And then when I left Peterbilt, went to work for uh, Custom Vehicle Solutions, and we were mounting compressed natural gas fuel systems for uh, fuel system manufacturers. All of the work is on heavy duty trucks. We've not gotten into the light duty market or anything. Um, After that, we began Momentum Fuel Technologies. I started out in the engineering role, designing and manufacturing the fuel systems. Um, One of the things that was very important to us is understanding the industry. The industry is still primarily refuse fleets, and they have some unique challenges that they do. The safety that you have to do for compressed natural gas fuel systems in those kind of industries is different than highway trucks. There are a lot of obstacles, especially overhead obstacles, that can hit and interfere with roof mounted systems. There's backing into objects with tailgate systems. You have ground clearance issues that are different than what are highway trucks. So those have always been very important things for us to address when we came into this market. So it's very important to us. We're also, most of our people came from a service side, and we started thinking about the technicians and how do you make the technician be able to easily identify what everything in the fuel system does. You know, you have different tubes that carry pressure at different times. You have tubes that are connected to the PRD systems, and they're always under pressure. You have tubes that are can be controlled by the valves, and you can work on them when uh, they can be isolated and worked on individually without having to defuel. And for us, it's very important that everybody knows what they can do safely, how to do it safely. Um, we uh, have recently worked on getting our training program accredited through ASE, and a lot of our training deals with safety. And this cards that we've worked on, they deal primarily with incidents after the fact. Um, and we've been very, very involved with this. I have been lucky enough that my companies have supported me in going out and getting training. I've been formally trained for uh, vehicle fire investigations. I've been formally trained on how to conduct investigations, incident investigations. And through that, it makes you realize what these trucks really go through and how do you design to uh, handle those kind of situations. One of the things that we identified recently through TTP and other industry organizations is that there was lack of training and lack of understanding on what to do when the vehicle is in an accident or a fire. Unfortunately, there was a major incident that injured several firefighters in LA that really was the breaking point that we realized as an industry that people do not know, including first responders, do not know what to do in the case of a fire or an accident. And that was the driving force behind creating our procedures through TTP and these cards. So if you want to go to the next slide. So one of the things that was identified with talking to first responders is that they don't know how to identify a truck that is CNG. When they come up upon it, how do I know that this truck is CNG? If you look at this truck that is being shown here right now, there is a CNG diamond on the lower left of the tailgate there. It's not real large, but if you're not looking for that diamond or know what to look for, this truck looks just like any other diesel refuse truck. So that was a big ask, is how do we make sure people know that it is a CNG vehicle? So the requirements really are just, you have to have a diamond of a certain size on the right rear of the vehicle and on each side of the power unit. The size of the decal, there's a minimum size that is required by NFPA. What we realized during that is if a vehicle is in a thermal event, we recommend a evacuation distance. But from that evacuation distance, you cannot read these decals. So one of our recommendations is to go with a larger decal, and also make sure that we put it in more locations. The first responders coming up may not be coming up in a way that the 3 places prescribed that decal is visible. So we've recommended putting them in more locations. The PRD vents, that's another area that first responders did not know what a PRD was and did not know where they were at. And every system manufacturer going on every different body has a little bit different location for PRDs vents. And so the label requirement, again, we've recommended that it go larger than what the minimum states that it needs to be. You just cannot read and tell what it is as a first responder who's coming up on that. Okay, next slide. So these are, when we're talking about sizes and everything of decals. So there's 2 different safety zones depending on what type of event you have. And the reason is if you have a fire, your danger is a cylinder rupturing. So until you know it's safe to approach, we need to stay back further. So we want to be staying back 100 meters. And at 100 meters, you can't read a CNG decal. So you need to be able to see those decals when you're at 100 meters as you're approaching the vehicle. The vehicle crash, what we're wanting to do is we want to stay back 30 feet and make sure that we don't have any ignition sources. So if we're 30 feet back, we're keeping the ignition sources away from the truck. We're get ready, and we're going to evaluate the situation, and then we're going to go in and check for leaks. You know, as it was talked about earlier, the driver, we want him as he's leaving the area to shut off ignition sources and shut off the manual shutoff valve if possible when he's evacuating. So that's going to eliminate a lot of the possible ignition sources, but we need to keep people away that 30 feet so that they don't get an ignition source in there. And like I said, it's two different reasons why we have the two different ones. One, we already have a fire. The danger is a rupture of the tank. The accident, it's the danger is more if I do have a leak of somebody having an ignition source and lighting that on fire. Okay. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Our next presenter is John Takei with WM. He is the corporate fleet manager and business solutions senior manager. He is a corporate manager in the fleet department, and he has been with WM for 27 years now. He has 25 years of experience with WM's natural gas fleet vehicles and refueling infrastructure. And with that, John, I will hand things over to you.
All right, thanks, Paul. For those of you who don't know who WM is, we were formerly named Waste Management. We are the largest waste collection and disposal company in North America. On every day, we operate about 18,000 trucks on the road, heavy-duty collection vehicles on the road every day. Approximately 13,500 of those are CNG trucks, majority of them running on renewable natural gas. By the beginning of next year, we're planning on having our fleet entirely fueled by renewable natural gas and all those CNG trucks, which is approximately 110 million diesel gallon equivalent of fuel. So we're very proud of that. This next couple of slides are basically excerpts from our first responder training. We have a full training deck that we train first responders all over the United States and Canada with. And it really goes through in great detail how to handle these very specific trucks. Just to put it in perspective, with the 18,000 trucks that we're running on the road every day, we have a thermal event on board more than one truck every single day, and that's not necessarily because of anything wrong with our trucks. A lot of it could be something as simple as a piece of cardboard falling down onto the exhaust. It could be something a little more complicated, like our customers throwing away certain types of batteries, barbecue coals, or it could even be a series of chemicals that are mixed together when it gets into our trucks. So it's something that we think about every day, especially in the design of our trucks, as well as the CNG fuel systems that are installed on them. One of the most important devices in the fuel system for us is the pressure relief device, the PRD. These are installed in various locations by the manufacturers, basically in a place where if the vehicle is on fire and fire is impinging on the fuel system, that these devices will sense that fire and release the pressure from the fuel system. These are typically going to activate thermally between the ranges of 219 and 230 degrees, depending on the manufacturer of the PRD. One thing to remember is these are one-time use devices. They're not a valve. There's valves that can turn on and off. Once these PRDs open, it's going to remain open the entire time after that and will not reclose. These PRDs are going to release the entire contents of the fuel system. There's vent tubes on our trucks that vent it in a safe direction, and our fuel systems have manual valves on them, so they don't close electronically like some other fleet vehicles do. So all the fuel tanks are interconnected, and when one PRD is venting, it vents the entire fuel system down. And because this is a thermally activated device, we train fire departments not to apply water to the fuel tanks on our trucks, because water is going to be much colder. It's going to cool down these PRDs and potentially prevent them from activating. And when they are prevented from activating, that means that that energy that's inside of the fuel system has nowhere else to go. And in the event of a fire, that's where Chris was talking about. One of the biggest dangers of a fire on board a CNG vehicle is that cylinder rupture. So that's why this is a very important device. on these vehicles, and we need to make sure that we're training first responders not to apply water to the cylinders until these PRDs have been activated. These PRDs on our trucks are all vented to go upwards and away from the vehicle. So this primarily gets it up above, the average height of a person, and it directs it upwards and away from the vehicle in a safe direction, usually away from other buildings and other vehicles nearby. But we also train the first responders, especially if they have ladder trucks, to make sure that they are not positioning those ladder trucks and personnel in the path of these PRDs, because there's a tremendous amount of pressure that will come out of these once they are activated. So it's we try to, as you can see in these pictures, they're all typically venting upwards and rearwards away from the vehicle. Part of our training, and also on these earlier slides that you saw, the first two steps of eliminating ignition sources is number one, to turn off the engine. When an engine's running, there's a lot of energy, electricity being generated, a lot of heat from the exhaust. So we want to turn that off. Number two, we want to turn off the electrical system. Most heavy-duty vehicles will have a battery disconnect switch. All of our trucks are equipped with one, like you see on the screen, and it's a very simple 90-degree rotation of that switch, and it eliminates all the electrical going throughout the entire truck. There are some other things that you can do preventively to protect the vehicle and its hot exhaust and vulnerable components from thermal events. There's thermal blankets that you can wrap the exhaust components. There's a picture on the left there of a Orange County thermal exhaust wrap. We spec that on all of our trucks to make sure that if any debris falls onto it, it's not going to ignite. And then also we protect those vulnerable components, such as CNG fuel hoses, coolant hoses, and even battery cables with a fire sleeve or thermal shielding, which protects that in the event that there is a fire on the vehicle. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Paul.
Thank you, John. We're going to move right along to our next speaker, who is Jeffrey Leet. He is the Vice President of Safety and Compliance with Renew Gas Transportation. Jeffrey has over 30 years of experience in firefighting, EMS, hazardous materials response mitigation, and emergency management. He is also well-versed in safety, logistics, CNG, RNG, and the trucking industry in general. Jeffrey currently holds positions as the VP of Safety and Compliance for Renew Gas Transportation. He's also a fire chief for his hometown fire department. He serves as an advisory board member to fire departments, advisory board member to emergency management groups, and also serves as an emergency services instructor. And all of his many roles, Jeffrey serves the CNG and RNG industry by promoting safety and emergency response protocols, policies, and strategies so that critical situations can be handled effectively. With that, Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today and taking a little bit of time out of your day to learn about the TTP and this great safety initiative. I come to you today kind of with a dual roles. As a transporter of CNG, RNG, actually in my background photo is type 2 trailers, type 4 trailers, and we do that in 20 different states across the U.S., but also from my bio, I am a fire chief. I'm a member of the National Volunteer Fire Council and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. I get to teach all over the United States. I teach virtual pipelines. I teach safety. I teach CNG and RNG safety. I was lucky enough this year to teach in Baltimore at the International Association of Fire Chiefs Hazmat Conference and taught virtual pipelines. It was kind of very exciting to try to bring this newer technology to the IAFC Hazmat. Why is this important? Well, CNG has been around for a long time. It's been, as you know, in the refuse community for a long time. More and more vehicles obviously are getting transitioned to CNG. And as a responder, it's kind of daunting to try to keep up with everything. This is where the TPP is huge, and these cards are phenomenal. When you have an organization like this that is taking the initiative to get all this information out there, and you have refuse haulers that are taking the time to come up with training programs to get to responders, it makes a huge impact on the communities. If you were to go to the next slide, Paul, and we'll take a look at the garbage truck on its side. To an average responder, it looks like a regular garbage truck, right? Well, if you didn't have the training and the understanding and know what to look for to identify that as a potential CNG alternative fuel vehicle, you would handle that just like a regular accident. Well, there's going to be a lot of different ways and a lot of different strategies that you would need to employ once you identify that as an alternative fuel vehicle. So the guidelines, the strategies that we put forward from the TPP into the community and to actually the operators of the vehicles is huge. If you want to advance the next slide. So the driver or the operator of the vehicle is really huge. They're our first responder. If you look at that, that could be considered just a hopper fire, but is it a jetting fire? We're training emergency services personnel. Is it a lazy flame or is it a jetting flame? That can give you a little bit of cues if you can't get right up to identify the typical blue diamond that would identify a CNG alternative fuel vehicle. Again, it may be a little bit harder to identify until you get right up to it. That's why with the driver having that type of education in the card, being able to physically go, here, this is a CNG vehicle. Here's some steps that you can do. Ironically, not ironically, but coincidentally, the 330 foot for the thermal event is the actual initial isolation distance in the ERG 115, which fire rescue emergency responder people are very, very familiar with. Now, firefighters, what do we have? We love water, right? We did not join the fire service to stay dry, right? Play with water all the time. Now, as my co-presenters talked about earlier, and a CNG alternative fuel vehicle fire, we don't want to do that. We do not want to put water on it. And there's a various bunch of reasons, but as the last presenter just talked about, we don't want to potentially cool that device. And I don't like the word, I like to call a rapid release event. That's what I like to use, that terminology. So that's why I think the training of first responders is paramount on all different levels. So with that, I'd like to just kind of turn it back over and see if there's any questions.
To Jeff, I
Kyle?
yes, we've got a question from Kyle. And it might take us a minute to enable the mics on our end.
There we go. Hopefully
right.
you can hear me now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got a question for Jeffrey. I really appreciate that you are coming to today's presentation with a background not only in operating gaseous fuel vehicles, but also the firefighting background. And kind of through that lens, I have a question. I'm curious if you have any experience or knowledge to share regarding the DOT emergency response guide for hazmat incidents in the transportation sector, and if you do, do you recommend the ERG as a critical resource for emergency responders?
Thank you, Kyle. Great. Fantastic question. Yes, the ERG is a phenomenal resource. We use it all the time in hazmat. There's one caveat though. The ERG for CNG hazmat is ERG 115. And there's an issue with that the TPP has identified. Under the fire section, it says to use flooding quantities of water. And as my co-presenters and I have talked about, we don't want to do that. So that is one section of ERG 115 that we don't recommend using. Is flooding quantities of water. We want to stay away from that. And what I teach and what we teach across the board is to cool and protect the exposures. Let the vehicle burn, let it consume and let it do all the thermal protection devices, let it do what it's supposed to do. Do not use flooding quantities of water, or in the old school firefighting days, the terminology was copious amounts of water. So again, we do not recommend that at all from the TPP or just in the fireside in general. A great question. Thank you. Might
All
there be
right.
any others?
We've got another question from Eddie Murray. Go ahead, Eddie. And again, it might take us a second to enable Eddie's mic.
Eddie, you have mic capability now. You'll need to take yourself off mic on your end, though.
Looks like it's off now. Well, we got you now. Well, now we don't.
It just keeps.
Oh, it's going off and on.
Yeah. It seems like we're having some technical difficulty with Eddie. Eddie, if you would like to drop your question in the chat, we'll try to get
Looks
that
like it's
answered
working
for
now.
you. Okay.
Now, Eddie.
All right, let me. Oh boy, doing this.
Eddie, we can hear you whenever you're ready. And while we wait on Eddie, we can also take a look at a question that our gas quality working group leader, Ted Williams, posted in the chat. Ted, I don't know if you want to provide any verbal insight on this, but I think the summary of your question is what sort of best practices and guidelines do we provide from a, uh, a building perspective or a facility perspective? Is that right? And you should be able to put yourself off mute. Kirk, have we enabled all mics at this point?
I'm enabling them as they're raising their hand. You, Ted, you
Okay.
now have capability.
Well, if both Eddie and Ted are unable to use their mics, let's take another question. Unless our panelists want to try to address the question regarding the incident that Ted alluded to in his question.
Yeah, there's also another question in the chat about how can personnel on the scene determine the hazardous areas if the CNG system starts venting?
Yep, that's a good one.
And you know, I just have a couple of comments, and others may as well. Is when Chris was showing the PRD decal that we're trying to add, that would help highlight the area where the PRD is going to vent. Also, it's important, like John Takei's slide had, that showed the different venting directions of the different system configurations they have. The hexagon emergency response guide that's on the QR code also has a breakdown of all the different types of systems and the directions of PRD venting. So familiarizing yourself with those is key. And you know, it's also a responsibility of the fleets operating in certain areas to make sure that they're their fire departments, their local emergency responders understand the configurations that are on their trucks, so they know how to react in the event of an accident.
Thank you, David.
As well, the standards changed in 2016 that requires heavy duty vehicles to have their PRD vents up and away. Previous to 2016, there was no regulation on how it had to vent, where it had to vent. And the older trucks, some of them will vent right at the system. Some will shoot straight out horizontally. And the systems are either 15 or 20-year systems, so there's still quite a few of those on the road. But the newer vehicles, there are standards that state it needs to go up and away, which we all think is a much safer configuration than what it used to be, and that's why the codes were changed. But we still have quite a bit of time for those to work themselves out of the field.
Yep. All right. I saw some hands up. Eddie, I don't know if you or Ted can use your mics yet. If not, maybe we go to Chris Byers.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Hey, just a quick question, and I love that the presentation was great. And this is to Mike Zimmerman. And you were explaining the role for TTP. How can a membership in a trade association like TTP improve safety, performance, and culture within fleet operations? What other options do we have, and how can that, if we get into something like TPP, how does that help us with providing what kind of resources?
I think that's an excellent question, Chris. I mentioned previously, this is a really diverse group of people with diverse experience. I mean, we've got members that are fleets. You guys heard from John at WM today. Members from manufacturers like Chris and David, and all kind of come from. They approach this from a different viewpoint, and so one of the things that TTP does is it takes these guys who are maybe from different backgrounds, but provide some really great viewpoints on safety. One guy may think this is the best way, and another team member may think, hey, yeah, but if you do that, then something different can happen. And so, one of the things this safety guide that was presented today, I think, is a great example of how could we put our heads together as an industry to do that. So, to answer your question, TTP typically has several events per year, and one of the things that I observe at these events is it's an opportunity for our member companies to come together and learn from each other. There may have been an incident that happened or a near miss, or hey, we did this and it worked really well. And it's probably the only place where you can get all of those subject matter experts in one place at one time and have those discussions with people who are all into the same common goal. So, this translates directly into how can you promote a better safety culture at your company. And we all know on this call, some companies do it better than others. And some organizations, safety takes a back seat until there is an incident. And we don't want that to happen. So TTP helps to promote that and make it easier for organizations to adopt a better safety culture rather than have to do it after something bad happens. And special thanks also to the folks from NHTSA that joined today. I think that's another great example of, hey, we're going to present this, and I think these are best practices, but we solicit everyone's input in trying to make this industry advance. and we want to be proactive about it, not reactive.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Chris, for the question. I think also it's important for us to recognize we're also interfacing with first responders and firefighters, and I think we had some representatives from those first responder and firefighter organizations with us today. So for those of you that are on with us, thank you for taking time out of your day, joining us. But that's really also a critical part of what we do here at TTP. We want to increase the awareness, training, and education with first responders. And I know they go through a lot almost all the time with all the training, but on issues like this, it's just so critical for them to understand. For instance, with the topic of dousing water onto a truck, that is not what they should be doing. They actually need to be doing quite the opposite. Let that fire burn and only focus on protecting the surrounding exposure. So I want to get to Ted Williams's question, even though he can't ask it verbally. And I see in the chat, and this is for our panelists, just anyone jump in that wants to try to tackle this. But we want to touch base on our activities within the Technology and Development Committee, how we touch on facility modifications, and also in the case of maybe a fully fueled vehicle being inside of a shop, hopefully that shop is modified for a CNG fuel system inside. But what guidance do we offer? And I'll open it up to our panelists. I can jump in if you guys need me to try to tackle that one as well.
And so we have TTP has a recommended practice for refuse trucks, mainly is what it was developed for. And inside of that, there is recommendations on facilities. And, it talks about facilities needing to be modified. It talks about where the gas is going to be going, what you need to look out for. So there is other documents, other things that TTP has developed that does address the facilities. On the second part of it, I don't know of anything that is dealing with specifically lifting fully fueled vehicles. I have a feeling this is in reference to an unfortunate incident in El Paso where a bus fell off of a lift that was fueled and had a very major incident, but I don't know of any information that I've been a part of or have seen that deals specifically with it lifting. Maybe somebody else does.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We do offer that recommended practices document, which was also published earlier this year. It's available in our resource center on the website. So that's definitely a really good resource to reference. I saw Devin had his hand up for a second. I don't know if Devin, you still wanted to ask a question, but we are starting to run out of time. But I'll also mention another resource specific to facilities, and it's our guidelines for modifying facilities, specifically maintenance facilities for CNG powered trucks. And so that is also available in our resource center, and we are in the process of updating that. Hope to have that completed within the next couple of months. So more to come on that. But without seeing any additional hands up or anything in the chat or Q&A windows, I am going to hand things over to Kirk Ross, who has been helping me in the background throughout this entire webinar. It's been extremely helpful throughout the whole planning process for this webinar. So Kirk, I think you've got a real quick message to share in terms of membership.
Yeah, it won't take long. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you to all of our guest presenters and dedicated members to the TTP. I am Kirk Ross, I'm the membership director, as Paul said, and we have a special fleet drive initiative that is going on from now to the end of the year, kind of a Black Friday deal. We have a special introductory rate for our new fleet members that are joining, and with that membership comes a full team membership TTP, access to our resources, ability to join any of our advocacy committees, any of our industry resource councils, and all of the member exclusive resources and content, and invitations to meetings and webinars just like this. One, registration to our TTP 2026 Summit. One, registration to the DC fly-in that happens every fall. So if you are a fleet owner and you're interested in becoming a member of TTP, I would be happy to meet with you and discuss further what TTP can do to help you advance your operation and the entire industry. And for all of those that aren't fleet operators that are a different segment of the industry, I would be more than happy to meet with you, as well as we have membership categories for the entirety of the gaseous fuel transportation industry. So with no further ado, I appreciate everyone being here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Paul.
All right. Kirk, thank you so much. Once again, thank you to all of our panelists that participated in today's webinar. And thank you for all of your support and participation in helping to develop this great, very important, quick reference information for drivers and first responders with CNG trucks. With that, I am going to adjourn us today. Thanks again for everyone attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Paul. Good job, everybody.